Hello, everybody. This is Amin,
Yes, Alex.
and welcome to another episode of LTA. We are now in the CMCO period of the Movement Control Order, so hopefully things will get better and better. But as always, we're trying to be safe. We're trying to stay at home as much as possible to avoid risking ourselves and the members of the society and getting everybody infected with this really bad virus that's going on. But welcome again to another episode. I just want to remind all our viewers we're on podcast as well. So you can have Let's Talk About in podcast. We are available on all your favorite podcast platform. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. So please do search for Search and Chow and look for the show Let's Talk About and have a listen on our podcast at our podcast as well. All right. So in today's episode, it's May 13th, and Apple has just announced the iPhone SE availability in Malaysia. So affordability and Apple are not necessarily the two words that you'd speak in one sentence, like how I just did just now. So Apple products are not cheap. Generally people perceive them to be expensive. But we see a concerted effort in Apple trying to go lower in the price range. So, this is probably the cheapest iPhone you can get right now. That's brand new, like a brand new model.
This
I'm
year's
not
model.
I'm not talking about second hands and stuff like that. And, at least for me, I don't know how Alex feels about this, but at least for me, I think that the iPhone SE, this version, so they came out with the earlier version when, Alex, like,
Just in 2016, 4 years ago.
they came out with the iPhone SE back then. It was I don't think it was a good device. We'll talk about that a little later in the show. But okay, the point that I wanted to make today is that I feel that the current generation iPhone SE is very interesting, and it's right on the money, pardon the pun, for people who want to come on board the iOS ecosystem or the Apple ecosystem, and for people who want to upgrade, and for people who are looking to have like a second iPhone or iPhone for their kids. I think it's the right kind. I wouldn't say perfect, but it's the right kind of compromises that actually doesn't detract from the Apple experience. Then the question is, what is the Apple experience? Then the question is, hey, Android has always been able to provide cheap and good phones that perform good. So I think of maybe last year, or if you backtrack this conversation 6 months, 8 months down the line, I would agree, and I would say, screw Apple and go to the Android side, because there's more variety, you can do more things, and it's cheaper in general, and it's more flexible. With the advent of iOS 13, Apple has changed the game. They have opened up the OS to allow it to do so much more. And I'm using both. I'm using an Android phone and I'm using an iPhone, and I don't feel like there's a big gap in terms of what you can do with your phones now between Android and iOS. So I'm coming into this discussion as not like an advocate, but I see the point. I see Apple's point now, in that the ecosystem is nice and there's nothing like it available in the market if you are in Android or Windows. Okay, I'm digressing now. Let's go and talk about the iPhone before we go into anything else. Okay, Alex, over to you. What do you think about the phone?
I think it's a good entry level point for people who want to jump into iOS, like what you mentioned, because it's affordable in terms of Apple's in terms of Apple standard, but you don't miss out a lot. I mean, you still get the latest processor, which means that you get the same processing power as you get on the iPhone 11 Pro. It runs on the latest iOS 13, and possibly you can use this phone for the next 3-4 years with the latest updates, because Apple generally supports their devices much longer. At the same time, despite being cheap, you still get the premium build quality. It still uses the aluminium frame. You have glass on both front and back. So I think it's a right entry level point for those who want to upgrade to try out the Apple ecosystem, and also for those Apple users out there who wants to get something newer but don't spend too much.
Yeah, okay, so I think we should talk about what is the iPhone SE and how it all started. So let's go back to the original iPhone SE. So you mentioned that it was like 4 years ago, right? So how
Yeah.
did that start? How did that start?
The idea of Apple is that phones they started with a 3.5-inch screen, then they moved to a 4-inch screen, and after quite a number of hesitation, they decided to go big. So they came out with the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, which came with a 4.7-inch screen and what's the other side? 5.5-inch screen. So it's much bigger now. And of course, there are those who prefer a smaller phone because I think at that time, everyone's going bigger screens since the Galaxy Note. But there are people who appreciate smaller phones, a phone they can use in a single hand, where your thumb can reach every single corner of the screen. So after that, they introduced the iPhone SE, which essentially is a recycled iPhone 5S.
Okay, what do you mean by recycle?
It has the same design, same screen. The only major difference is the camera and the processor. Everything else is the same. It's the same 4-inch screen. In 2016 is the time where everyone's having at least a 5-inch phone, and they coming out with a 4-inch phone. It was the smallest brand new phone you can get.
And what was the price back then?
It's quite similar actually. So there are two options. There's a 16 gig version that's going for 1949.
16
I know, 16 gig, yeah. And it can support 4K videos, okay? And there's also a 64 gig version that's going for 2449.
Do you remember your first impressions? Because I remember you unboxing it. I remember we bought it from like Australia or something because Malaysia wasn't in the early waves back then 4 years ago. But we're now currently in like maybe the second wave. We get iPhones much earlier than before. That goes to show that Malaysia is like a key market. People are buying iPhones in Malaysia despite the price. Okay, so back then when you first saw the 4-inch iPhone SE, what was your first impressions? Do you remember?
Coming from a person who has used bigger phones, like a 5.5-inch phones, right? It's too small. But I can see the point of it because there are people who are still using the old iPhone 4S, iPhone 5. I know there's a lot of people who doesn't like the new phones because it's too big, it's too heavy.
No, it's not
very
too
light.
big. I think it's too expensive. I have a problem with smaller devices. I don't know, guys. Okay, if you guys are watching, listening to the show, put down in the comments below. Is like a device size 4-inch phone. Can you imagine that, a 4-inch phone? So if you want to imagine a 4-inch phone, if you have a Galaxy Note, if you have a Galaxy S20, if you have an iPhone 11, not even the Pro or not even the Pro Max, right? You could fit the whole phone. You could fit the whole iPhone SE, the first gen, on the screen of your current phone right now. That's how small it is. I don't get the point. I think people didn't want to get like a new iPhone because they couldn't afford it. Like I know a lot of students, they like to use iPhones. I know a lot of fresh grads. I know a lot of people that like to use iPhone but just can't afford buying a full-fledged phone.
But of course, there are segments of people that they don't use the phone as extensive as we do. Because I remember, like, if you go to the States or Europe, right, there's a lot of people still using feature phones. They want something small and compact. They don't really use their phones for social media. They don't use it to consume video. So these kind of segments, right, I think they just want a phone that is small and it just makes call and SMS. That's it. So I can understand where they're coming from. But I do know that the demand for larger phones has been increasing, and that's the reason why there was this iPhone SE 1.5. Remember that?
Okay, I don't remember an iPhone SE 1.5.
So a year after that, right, in 2017, right, Apple, I think they realized that, people actually want bigger phones. The iPhone SE is just too small for today's standards.
They want bigger screens.
Yeah, they want bigger screens.
Right. Okay.
So what Apple did was they brought the iPhone 6 back from the dead in 2017. That phone has been discontinued and they brought it back to life. So they brought back the iPhone 6 with 32 gigs and they sell it for 1,999. And that was, I think, one of the best sellers for a couple of months in that year.
They still called it the iPhone 6, right? They didn't call it like the iPhone SE or anything, right?
No, because I think they don't want to spend too much time messing around with it. They just, you know what, let's take it out from the parts bin and assemble a new one, and here you go. The only difference is that they introduced 32 gigs of storage. Because back then, Apple has 16, 64, these two options. So they came out with a new iPhone 6 with 32 gigs of storage.
They didn't upgrade the processor or anything?
No, it's the same iPhone 6.
Okay, so that was Apple's first dabble into this budget or affordable market. So what happened was Apple realized back in 2016 or 2016, right, Alex, when the first
2016.
SE came out, that there is a growing market of people who are now buying smartphones. So Their previous experiences would be from Android, and it would be from like really basic experience, a really basic Android phone. And they see like, hey, there are people who want to get smartphones, and they might not like the Android experience, or Apple found like a place that, okay, we could be affordable, but we could also be premium. Of course, affordable is relative. You won't be able to see a 500 ringgit iPhone in the near future, or ever, actually, to be honest. But we do see iPhone prices going cheaper and cheaper. We also see iPads becoming cheaper and cheaper. The point I'm trying to make here is that the whole ecosystem, the whole Apple ecosystem, is becoming more affordable, and that's good for a lot of people. After that, I think how long ago was the SE? Like 4 years ago, and they never refreshed it. So what was the cheapest iPhone available after the SE?
So after SE, I think you can get the budget iPhone 6s, but that's about 2,000 plus. And then even before the new SE was launched, the cheapest you can get was in production is the iPhone 8. I think that's going for 2006.
What is the iPhone 8 still available?
No, it is replaced immediately after the SE is announced.
Okay, so the SE is the cheapest phone available, lah.
Yep.
Basically, I think Apple has like cleaned up the whole lineup. So now all the phones that are in production, you can get brand new from Apple, have the current A13 Bionic processor, which is like the most powerful processor that they can get. So there's no compromise there. You get the best processor you can get for any iPhone. I think that's good. You don't compromise on glass. So glass and aluminium is like a material that is standard across all iPhones, right?
Except for the 11 Pro Max, that's using stainless steel.
Okay, so glass and metal, generally, and all of them get stereo speakers. Even flagship phones don't have that feature, which is like, for me, like the most basic feature. Like, and it's so possible to do, right? So okay, I think OnePlus 8 does not
stereo
have.
speakers.
They do. Okay.
Yep.
What flagship? I can't remember now.
I think right now the only one that doesn't have it is Huawei, which is weird because they did have stereo speakers and then they remove it. Xiaomi now has stereo speakers. Samsung now has stereo speakers.
Yeah. So stereo speakers pioneered by HTC, but I think Apple is the one that really nails it. I don't know. There's another phone, the Redmi, that has stereo speakers. I think Rory is using it.
The Mi 10, the Mi 10 Pro.
Yeah, so they're saying that one has better speakers. I've never tried it, so I don't know. But in terms of sound, right? So what I like about the iPhone SE is the new one, the iPhone SE 2020, is that Apple has stuck to the formula of, okay, let's put in a new processor and recycle a lot of the components. So essentially, and I'm not denying this, that the new iPhone SE is a recycled iPhone 8, which was released back when 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago, same time as the iPhone 10X.
Yeah.
10.
So essentially, you're using the same body and camera and display as 2 years ago. But inside, you get a better processor, and that allows you to get more features with the new operating system, iOS 13.4 or something like that. For a lot of people who are like chasing specs, right, it's easy to say, oh, it's only a 720p display. It's not an AMOLED display. Can you get a phone within the same price range as the iPhone SE with AMOLED?
Yeah, I think you can get plenty of it. Like Samsung, the A50s, the A70s, they're all AMOLED screens, and they're like from price as low as 1,200, 1,300.
And they have multiple cameras too, right?
Yeah. I think most of the Android phones, they come at least 3 cameras these days.
People who are chasing specs, you are losing out on the
display
and the camera. And I have to agree, when the iPhone XR, iPhone 10R, when that was released, I ranted about the display. Because I said that, I loved everything about it. I love that you get the current processor. I love that you get a really good iPhone experience. That the experience is intact. And I love that you get stereo speakers. But I hate it that you have to live with this terrible
compromise.
Display. I say terrible because probably it's an extreme point of view because I've been using AMOLEDs ever since, and I really like AMOLED's display, the black especially. and the colors and the vibrancy, and coming from an AMOLED to a 720p LCD display, you really notice the difference. Putting this into perspective, who is Apple targeting when it comes to the iPhone SE? I think they are targeting people who are first-time buyers, number one. They're targeting people who are upgrading from super older iPhones. Although the iPhone SE is newer than the iPhone 11, technically, because it's just launched, the technology is on par or is the same. So you cannot say that the iPhone SE is newer than the 11. The 11 is better in terms of camera, lah, and not the processor. It has more cameras. The display and everything is the same. Maybe the display is bigger,
Bigger, yeah. It's 6.1 inch.
but it's the same LCD and it's the same resolution, 720p. It's targeted for people who are upgrading from older iPhones. Targeted to people who are looking to buy a smartphone in this day and age. I don't know who hasn't bought a smartphone yet. It's targeted for people who are buying it for somebody else, for their mothers, fathers, grandparents, for their children. And if you ask me, right, if that was the brief, okay, designers, please make an iPhone that is not that expensive, but doesn't compromise on the Apple experience and is kind of affordable. To me, that fits the bill. To me, the iPhone SE fits the bill. And that's my opinion. So what do you have to say about the iPhone SE, Alex?
One thing I like about how Apple approaches is that they make some features mandatory across the range. When I say mandatory, is that, okay, what's the must-have? Let's give them the latest processor we have, which is A13 Bionic chip, which is great. And then what else is important? Okay, like for example, they still maintain water resistance, which is the same as what you get across the range, although it's a bit lower at IP67. You still get stereo speakers for better sound, and also it also supports the latest wireless technology. Yes, there's no 5G, but it supports Wi-Fi 6, and there's also eSIM support. So can you actually use it for dual SIM? Of course, the dual SIM is a bit different. So one of it is a physical card, another one is like an embedded SIM card, which you can scan from QR code. So if you look at the key features, the key things that you can touch and feel, like another thing is wireless charging. So you think about the boxes they take, right? It's actually quite similar to what you get in flagship phones. You don't really lose out a lot. So like for example, in terms of the camera experience, I think although it's one camera, don't forget that social media apps like Facebook and Instagram, they work much better on iOS compared to Android. That's something that I think most people need to think about when getting a phone in this price range.
Okay, I want to go into camera first lah. Like a phone that is 1,000 ringgit you can get with like triple camera, right?
Yep.
And the triple camera usually comes with a telephoto, a wide, and an ultra wide, right? And for me, the biggest issue I have with this iPhone SE is that it only has one camera. I had a discussion with Rory about this. I predominantly most of the time use the ultra wide angle because I feel that it's convenient, and I feel that my pictures are more interesting. But then again, my pictures are mostly me sending a WhatsApp message to my wife at the supermarket. It's like, oh, these are the things that's available here. So I need the wide angle to show like what she can see in the on the aisles and stuff. And I mostly take shots of like sceneries. So the ultra wide for me is a big deal. And if I were to like really go into this, and if I were to like really make a choice, it's going to be like super difficult for me to buy this phone because it doesn't have a ultra wide angle. So if I'm like a user, right, and I'm like, I really want an iPhone, but this one does not have ultra wide. The next upgrade for me would be the 11.
iPhone 11, yes.
Which is like almost double the price. If it was you, right, you're gonna buy a phone, right? How much would you spend, and would you consider the iPhone SE with the price?
It depends on individual, I guess. Like if I'm as a person who takes a lot of pictures, especially for events, I need the versatility of ultra wide and telephoto. Then this will be out of my list because I definitely need better cameras. So for $2,000, I would actually consider other alternatives in the Android ecosystem. But if I just want a phone that works, a phone that lasts for 3-4 years without any worry. Single camera, yeah, it's a compromise, but I think it's okay if the camera is good. I think the iPhone SE camera is good because iPhone 8 camera is actually not crap. It's actually pretty decent. You still can shoot 4K videos as well. One thing that's worth mentioning is that the front camera, the 7 megapixel camera, although it's similar to the iPhone 8, but you do get the portrait mode, similar to what you get on the newer devices, and that's made possible with the new chip. So if you're a person who takes selfies, it does the job well. I mean, it's more than enough.
Yeah, I think you're right to point out that although the camera hardware is old, how many megapixels is it again?
The front is 7 megapixels.
The back?
12.
It's the same camera as even the current phones are 12 megapixels, right?
Yep. But it's using the same sensor as iPhone 8.
Or it's the same sensor.
Yep.
iPhone 11 uses a different sensor.
Yeah, it's a newer one. iPhone 11, same as 11 Pro Max for the main camera at least.
So even the hardware is kind of dated. The features that you get is optimized, meaning that you get the computational imaging. So that's kind of like iPhone AI for pictures. You get dynamic HDR, like a new form of HDR. You get that portrait lighting that you can change after the fact.
Yeah, but just only for the front camera though, not from the back. Yeah.
I think the back camera. I think it's available for the back camera also.
But one thing that's different though is they don't get the night mode, which is available on the iPhone 11. Yeah.
Yeah. So then that's also another big compromise for me. So night mode is huge. It's a huge lifesaver, especially on the smartphone because you don't have perfect lighting with you all the time.
Yep.
And sometimes you need to take shots in the dark. I mean, okay, so the question is the iPhone SE. What is the big deal about it? So the big deal is you pay a lot less and you don't compromise on the experience, but you do compromise on some features. Ultra wide is one of them. Low light photography is another one. But what you gain is that you gain software support, which you cannot say for the most part with regards to Android phones.
Yep.
Most of the time, Android phones will probably last you for 2 years. At most, but
That's a stretch.
Yeah, and that's like maximum, right? You're like really trying hard to make it work. But I see a lot of people using like old iPhones, and they don't compromise. Okay, for example, I have like a 3-year-old, I have a 2-year-old iPad Pro, and I have a 3-year-old normal iPad. They are all running the latest iPad OS 13, and for all the intents and purposes that I use it, I don't see any difference. I don't see a need to buy like a new iPad. So that is the benefit that you're getting when you're jumping onto the iOS or Apple ecosystem. The other thing is also battery. So you'll be surprised to know that the iPhone SE in this era of phones having 5,000 milliamp hour battery only has a 1,800 milliamp hour battery.
Yep.
That is
Tiny.
Spectacularly small. To be honest, I think I'm trying to like make a comparison. Like what phones?
None. I don't think you can see any Android phones with that. Even the cheapest Android phone you can get right now, they're pushing at least 3,000 milliamp hour.
Yes.
But here's the thing. I think based on my experience with iPhone 8, right, this is a phone that probably won't be suitable for power users because when I use like an iPhone 8, the iPhone 7, right, you probably need a charge by 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. But I guess it depends on the target market. For those who just use the phone like a essential communications tool, then maybe it's enough.
Okay, what do you mean by a power user? So just tell me what is a typical power user?
I think typical power user is someone that has at least 5 hours of screen on time, who always check your Facebook, Instagram a lot, use a lot of WhatsApp and all that, and also use the phone to watch videos. Because there are some people who just use it purely for texting and receiving messages on WeChat, I guess.
For me, like a power user is somebody that uses it for emails, somebody that uses it for maybe video and editing, and also uses it for Waze. It's not a power user because it uses processing power, but it's a power user because you literally use the power, the battery. Okay, so if you're talking about video usage, actually I think we did some tests whereby, I can't remember when, but we found out that when you're running videos, actually all the processors stop. So you can actually have longer video time if you just watch video alone instead of like cycling through like YouTube and then Facebook and then things like that. So if you're like watching movies, generally speaking, most of the processors, most of the phones, Android or iPhone, will just stop everything because it assumes that, hey, if I'm watching video full screen, I cannot do anything else. So everything stops. So
Not really stop, but it optimized like running at a very low cost.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's some perspective. The iPhone SE has 1,800 milliamp hour battery. You can use it probably for 6 hours, 8 hours. You're not going to get 5 hours screen on time. You're probably going to get 3, 4 max.
Yep.
But having said that, there is no Android phone that can run on 1,800 milliamp hour battery that can give you the same amount of screen on time.
Yeah, because iOS is more optimized anyway.
Yeah, or performance for that matter. And that's my point. A lot of people in the Android camp will say, oh, 1000 milliamp hour battery, what kind of RAM you're getting, what kind of processor you're getting. Here's the thing with and I might sound like an advocate. I'm not. I mean, I'm still critical of what Apple does. But what I'm trying to say is that I see where they're getting at. I see that, they've optimized their ecosystem so well that they don't have to chase for the specs. So back then we had an episode of LTA where we talk about whether specs matter or not. And I was on the camp where it doesn't matter. What really matters is I don't need to know what kind of processor I'm getting. I don't need to know whether it's a 655 or whether it's 6 gigs of RAM or whether it's 5,000 milliamp hour battery. All I need to know is whether it does what I need it to do. And a lot of people who are in the Android camp have to go into the specs because only then it determines what it can do for you. So if you are Android and you need and you're a power user, you need like huge processors and you need like a really long battery life, you need it to run on Android 865 or 855 at least. Android plus Snapdragon. You need it to have at least 3000 milliamp hour battery. You need it to have at least 6 gigs of RAM. And for me it's easy. So if you're like a new user, you don't need to worry about specs. You just get an iPhone SE and out of the box, you're assured. Okay, let's say you're the Android camp. Go with an argument against. It's like no. I think for 1,999 ringgit can you get a better Android phone?
In terms of battery life, there's plenty because an Android, right? There's a clear cut between the mid-range, entry-level phones, and most of the cheap Android phones are getting very, very good these days. I mean, you can see even entry-level phones with 5,000 milliamp hour battery, they last a full day. They have better screens. I think definitely battery and display, you can get better options on Android Cam compared to the iPhone SE. But of course, there are a lot of compromises. So in terms of build quality, they won't be the same because normally they make some sacrifices in terms of build quality. Maybe you get plastic bags, or plastic bags.
Yeah, you're not gonna get glass on any cheap Android. You're not gonna get glass on an Android that's below 2,000. That's for sure.
Correct. And then you look into the either fine details of the specs or not specs. I hate to say that word. Features. I think it's hard to get any Android device under 2,000 ringgit that comes with water resistance. A phone that has wireless charging for less than 200 ringgit. You just can't, because those are the compromises that you have to make. But for the iPhone, they still include all those things.
Yeah. So, but then a lot of people will say, okay, you know what? I'm a gamer. I need the performance. I don't care about water resistance because I'm staying at home all the time.
Yep.
Yes, I have to tell you this. If you're into like gaming, if you're into like I don't know what games you guys play. I don't.
PUBG or Asphalt. Yes, you get more powerful options for the. Not powerful.
Yes.
Okay, not powerful. The better combination, because SE
yeah.
you have the iPhone SE. You get a better processor, but the screen, like 720p screen, is like, what's this, man? What year is it?
Yeah, you're gonna lose out on certain advantages if you game on the iPhone. I can tell you that. And I think if you're a gamer watching this, please educate me on the mobile gaming scene, because I'm really out there. Out of it. I don't game at all. The only gaming I do is on my Nintendo Switch sometimes, and I play some arcade game, Apple arcade games, which are just mostly pick up and play kind of things. I don't go investing into like PUBG and I can't even remember game names, Fortnite or Mobile Legends or whatever it is. So for the avid gamer or for gamers who are going to be professional, I think yeah, Android is the only camp that you go to. In the long run, though, you know, you got to invest in new devices day in and day out. At least after 2 years. Again, I'm not trying to make a case for, but okay. So I'm trying to frame this discussion, right? So iPhone SE, who is it for? Whether the price is worth it or not, and whether the phone is worth it or not. From what I've seen, guys, to be honest, I can't see any reason why you shouldn't go for the iPhone SE. I don't know. I mean, do you have a case against it, Alex?
Yep. So like for example, if you're aftering like the crucial experience for the gamers, like you want a screen that's smooth, that's high resolution, a pretty good processor as well. I think the closest competitor for the iPhone SE right now would be the Realme X2 Pro and the OnePlus 7T.
In terms of price, is it? Are those the same prices?
If you look at the same spec level, because the iPhone SE 64 gig starts at 1,999, and if you want more storage, like 128 gigs, that's going to cost you 2,199. And you want 256 gigs, that's a huge jump. It's 2,699. So you're going slightly more than 2,000 ringgit.
That goes way out of the budget range, to be honest. 2.5 is kind of like a low-end flagship.
Yeah. So if you look at Realme X2 Pro, it's 2,399. Okay. You get a Snapdragon 855 Plus processor. You get a 90 Hz display, which is much smoother. And you get 256 gigs of storage.
90 Hz AMOLED, right?
Yes, refresh rate.
90 Hz AMOLED display and a high resolution.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's 2,399.
And then you get 256 gigs of
storage.
And
then OnePlus 7T. That's for 128 gig is 2,299. Yep, it's 100 ringgit more expensive than an iPhone SE. But you also get a 90 Hz display, a Snapdragon 855 Plus processor, and stereo speakers as well. And of course, don't forget the cameras. They're more versatile. You get like a main camera, you get an ultra wide angle camera, you also get a telephoto camera. So that's an it's quite a good package. You lose out on a couple things. There's no wireless charging, there's no water resistance, and of course, in terms of software support, probably it will just last maybe 1 or 2 years.
Now you're putting doubt. Okay, so I started this show having a case for the iPhone SE. But here's the thing. I'm in the ecosystem. I am using a Mac, I'm using an iPad, and I'm using an iPhone. So if I'm in the ecosystem, yeah, sure. But if you are a first time smartphone user, if you're like if your mom and your dad is trying to get you like a smartphone, right? All these things that you mentioned to me and all the things that I need the phone to have, which is like a ultra wide angle camera and a really good display, then I'm gonna say, look, I don't think the iPhone is a good buy lah.
For me, it's like if you want to buy for yourself, you want a phone that is powerful, has a great screen, a huge battery, by all means go for Android. But if you want to buy a phone, if let's say you're a simple person, I just want a no-nonsense phone that can last me for 4 years. I don't want to keep changing phone every single year. You want to have a safe decision, a safe choice, then the iPhone SE could be the phone for you.
Okay, are you gonna miss bezel-less displays?
Okay, here's the thing. I think here's another point. If you're a person who experiences Full HD screens, right? You can't go back to a 720 screen. It's going to be very hard. It's like a downgrade. It's like, what is this, man? If you've been using a small screen all the while, like if you're coming from an iPhone 6 or even the old iPhone 5, then I think this is a good option for you, for those who want to transition from a slightly smaller phone. But from a bigger phone, I think you can't go back. For me, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, well, okay, so from the iPhone ecosystem perspective, if you're an iPhone user and you're using the iPhone 6 or late, anything that's before the 8, the iPhone SE with its 4.7-inch screen, which is still the same. So you don't lose in terms of experience, but you gain in terms of the processor. But the single camera, you don't lose, but you don't gain either. So, and apparently the 4.7-inch display is the biggest number, represents the biggest number of iPhone users in the market right now. So, a lot of iPhone users are still in older phones. The good part of that is older phones are always supported. And if you're looking to upgrade, yeah, for sure, 1,999 for the 64 gigs is probably a good buy. But then a lot of people on the Android camp will say, "Hey, how can you survive with 64 gigs?" Yeah, to be honest, you can't. You need at least 128. I'm gonna sound like a fanboy here, and I'm gonna sound like I'm trying to like justify this, but at the same time, iCloud is good, and if you're in the ecosystem, it's fine. Now, the more I talk about this, the more I have a problem because if you're sucked in the ecosystem, you really can't get out. It's really difficult to get out. I don't know. Is it a problem? Okay, Alex, you're not in the ecosystem. Used to be in the ecosystem. What would you tell people? I mean, where do you go from here? Should you, aside from it being like a safe choice
Mm-hmm.
for people who want like a phone that's supported and everything, right? Is this something that sucks you into the ecosystem?
I was does it suck me
Yeah.
the ecosystem?
Yeah.
Well, I guess okay. If you're okay, you're talking about from a non-Apple user perspective or existing Apple user perspective.
Non-iPhone user. So is this a trap? I mean, like, I don't know. I'm always been skeptical about iPhone and Apple products. I've always been critical about Apple. I've always been like, what the hell are they doing? This is too expensive. Android is always better. I've always been an advocate of Android devices simply because they are cheaper, they are better, and they are more flexible, and I like that. But now I find myself using everything Apple, and I'm not saying I'm not saying that it's perfect, but I see how everything works together so nicely. Like I see how like I can copy stuff from my iPhone and I can paste it on my Mac like that.
Yeah.
And I pair devices instantly. I can see how like if I need to tether my Mac, right, and my iPhone is there, I don't need to key in passwords. It just links. I just love how it works. Rory has a video on like a perspective of a Windows user using a Mac, and I think he balances out the argument very well. For certain things, for certain users, for certain workflows, this might not work. But for the most part, for my workflow at least, it's perfect. And I find myself recommending people to use iPhone more. I find myself recommending people to use Macs more. But there are a lot of different perspectives, lah. That's what I'm saying, lah. But
For me, I think if you've been using Apple products all the while, if you have a MacBook, you have an iPad at home, and you haven't bought an iPhone yet, I think, yeah, go ahead and get this phone because this will complete the whole ecosystem. Like, for example, if you already have a MacBook, have an iPad, right? The missing link right now is the phone because
No,
you can
but-
use it to take picture and send it to your device. It just makes it so seamless. So I think if you're really invested in the Apple ecosystem, go for iOS. For first-time user, if you've never used any Android devices and you want a phone that lasts, I would still recommend iPhone SE. Think about it this way: 1,999. Say it can last for 4 years. That's like 500 ringgit per year on a phone that has like a flagship class processor, a pretty okay camera, and is paying 500 bucks per year. If you buy Android phone, you want to get, let's say, a 2,000 ringgit phone. And if it lasts for 2 years, you're spending like 1,000 ringgit per year. That's like double the cost of owning a phone.
I think we are reaching the end of our discussion today. We started off with, okay, what is the iPhone SE? Or I don't know whether the iPhone SE is worth it. From an Apple perspective, okay, this is my wrap up. So from an Apple perspective, I think they've done very well in terms of choosing a platform, which is the iPhone 8, right?
Yeah.
iPhone, choosing that as a base and then upgrading the processor and putting it out, and they've put in like a really good price. And I echo what Alex said. If you're looking for like a straightforward, easy to use phone that's no nonsense, no problems, and you just need a phone. You're not a gamer, you're not a photographer. You just need a smartphone. You can argue that, hey, I can get like a 500 ringgit Android phone, I can get a 1,000 ringgit Android phone. I can tell you that you should avoid 600 ringgit or 1,000 ringgit Android phones because they don't last. The processors on that are like really terrible. Not really terrible, but they are crap. Okay, those are the same thing.
What? Hey, you can get very good phones now. Okay, I'll get
For 1,000 ringgit, what can you
Yes.
get?
Redmi
Okay, what
Note 9S.
processor?
It's a
Huh, what?
Snapdragon 720G, the Redmi
Seven?
Note 9S.
okay, 720G is okay, but then
Yeah.
you don't have the support. 720G is for gaming also, so if you're into gaming, yeah, you should get
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I agree, but I don't know. I don't know what point I'm trying to make.
So okay, basically, if you want like the best performance, whatever, on a budget, just go get an Android.
Yep.
If you want to get the high performance on the Apple, you got to fork out 3,000, 4,000 ringgit, which is quite a lot. But if you want a phone that just lasts, no nonsense, yeah, go ahead get iOS for 2,000 bucks.
No, you're talking about the SE, right?
Yes, SE. If you want
Yeah.
a no nonsense phone, if you're not particular about the camera, if you can live with the screen, you're okay with the 1,800 milliamp hour battery, yeah, the iPhone SE is a safe choice. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
But more bang for the buck of money, I would say get an Android if you want the performance, the huge battery, the fluid display.
I don't know, man, but a lot of people that come back to me and say, you know what, I've tried Android, now I'm going iOS, and I ask them, you know why? Why Android can do so much more? And a lot of them come back to me and say, look, after 2 years my phone is slow, or after 1 year my phone is laggy.
Yep.
Can you recommend me like a phone that doesn't lag? And I cannot with my hand in my heart and tell them, look, buy an Android, it won't lag.
No, you can't.
I will tell them, okay, if you have WhatsApp, please make sure you turn off auto download. If you're using like a lot of WhatsApp, you know, a lot of people just download pictures and they don't purge them. I try to recommend people, if you're on Android, try to purge the pictures every week or every month. I do it every week actually. I go through all my gallery and I delete all the pictures and videos that are essentially nonsense. I do that for my Android and iPhone, and that's all I can recommend them. If somebody comes to me and says, "Look, dude, I need a phone that can last me for more than 2 years," I cannot consciously tell them to get an Android, and I think that is my argument for the iPhone SE. Um, it is a phone that like you say, Alex, lasts you for more than 2 years, and for the asking price, you get more feeling, feeling because it's intangible. The glass, the way iOS functions, the functions and features, those things are very difficult for me to tell you in terms of specs because it doesn't exist in specs. It exists in the way of using and it exists in the way of feeling. And for me, that is the price that you pay for using an iPhone. And if you ask me, I've used a lot of Android phones and I'm still using Android. No Android has come close to this feeling. Maybe Samsung has, and that's why I've always been stuck. For my Android phone has always been Samsung, because it has Samsung Pay, and I'm very familiar with One UI, and I think they're going the right way with that. Sometimes I don't agree with the camera performance. Sometimes I don't agree with the battery life. And I think the Exynos processor is not good. You know, if you're getting a Samsung phone, choose the Snapdragon variant if you can, and if it's available in Malaysia. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I hope I'm not confusing anybody.
Long story short, if you want a phone that lasts, iOS, man. I mean, there's no other choice out there that can last more than 2 years. With the support of iOS, with the
Yeah.
security updates that can go beyond, like even today, you can get iOS 13 on the iPhone 6s, if you're not mistaken. So yeah, they really have very good support.
Yeah, no nonsense, consistent. You know, the Touch ID is consistent. It works. You don't have to fiddle with it. I know.
Touch ID, yes, that's another difference.
Yeah.
If
What's the
you-
difference?
Because like right now, right? Okay, as you're aware, with the MCO, when everyone needs to wear masks nowadays, right? Using Face ID on a new iPhone is a hassle right now because it just couldn't work with the mask on. So the ISE has one redeeming feature: Touch ID. Just use your thumb, press, and you're in. No need passcodes.
Yeah, Touch ID works. You make a good point, but you know, I think Nick has put out an article on how you can use your mask and Face ID. There's some tweaking required, but there's a way to do it. But Touch ID and is I don't want to say better, but
It's so seamless with any app, right?
it's seamless with any app.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, cheaper Android phones have fingerprint sensors now.
Yep.
It's usually at the back
Or the sides now,
or
or
at
the
the
front.
sides. Yeah, so it's that's my point. It's all over the place. Some
Yeah.
of them, okay, the more expensive ones have in display, which is like super slow compared to like the normal one. So yeah, in terms of the experience, you want something that's no nonsense, it works, lasts for a long time, go for iOS. If you want options and variability and tweaking and everything else, go for Android. It hasn't changed. So back to the question: is the iPhone SE worth it? Yeah, for the asking price 1,999, sure. You want to go upgrade to the, if you're looking for more storage, I don't recommend you buying the physical storage. I don't recommend you spending more for the physical storage. I do recommend that you try and look into iCloud. I'm paying like 3 ringgit 90 cents for 50 gigs, which is like, okay, what? I get 50 gigs. That means if I get a 64 iPhone SE, it's 50 gigs plus 64, which is about 111, which is okay. You can add on to that, or you can reduce that if you want to. So don't go for the bigger storage. Go for iCloud. And it's only going to be filled up with pictures anyway. So if you're not taking pictures, 64 is more than enough, to be honest. And if you start a habit of like purging your gallery with all this WhatsApp nonsense, then you're fine. Even with more storage, I do continue doing that. So I have a 256 iPhone and a 128 Galaxy Fold. Or I can't remember what the storage is at. 512, I can't remember.
512, I think.
Yeah, and I still purge the gallery. Do you do that, Alex? Do you purge the?
Not really. Because I take most of my photos on the iPhone, it just help me to push to the cloud.
Yeah. So you use iCloud also,
Yeah.
and you have a bigger storage, right?
Yeah, I think mine is 200 gigs.
How much do
Yeah.
you pay for that a month?
I think 39 ringgit.
Yeah, and you're surviving on a 64 gig phone, right?
Yeah,
If I'm
that's
not
right.
mistaken. Yeah. So my advice is correct, everybody. And Alex takes a lot of videos. He edits on his phone. He goes to events and takes pictures, and he's surviving on a 64 because iCloud works so well, so seamlessly. Okay, so that's my wrap up. Anything you want to add, Alex?
I think that's all we need to say lah. So yeah, you want more choice, more performance, go for Android any day. But you want the ecosystem, the cheapest phone that can use the Apple Watch, then the iPhone SE is something worth considering.
Yeah, and then you brought another good point, Apple Watch. When it comes to smartwatches, I have to tell you guys there is no smartwatch that is as good as the iPhone. Similarly to tablets, when it comes to there's no smartwatch that
Watch.
is as good as the Apple Watch. I've tried a lot of watches, and yeah, you can argue with me if you're watching this on YouTube. Put in the comment section. Tell me which smartwatch you think is better than the Apple Watch. For now, I fail to see any. The other one is iPad. So if you're like looking for a tablet, so if you want your phone to work with your tablet, and if you already have an iPad but you're still using an Android phone, like how I used to do, because I don't like Android tablets. I don't think they work, and I think when it comes to tablets, iPads are the best and the one and only you should get. This is a good reason for you to get an iPhone. Again, I'm not advocating, I'm just saying, if you need my advice, that's what I'm saying. Alright? Alright, everybody. That is the end of our LTA. And it's all about the iPhone SE this time around. As always, thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for subscribing, liking the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We love your discussions. We love to read your comments, and we love your suggestions. So please leave them in the comment section. We read them, and we appreciate them, and we hear them, and we listen to them, and we use them as things that we make more content from, ideas. If you haven't already, we're on podcasts, so you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all of your favorite podcast platforms. We are available there. Just look for searchingjao.com and look for the show LTA. If you're listening to us on podcast, please do give us a 5-star rating if you like the show. That really helps us in making our podcast better, and also making making more people listen to our podcast. Okay, that's pretty much it. This is me, Amin, and that's
Alex.
And thanks for watching, guys. Catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye.